You've lived this moment. You finish something that took real effort, a project, a piece of writing, a decision you made under pressure. And instead of asking how it was built, what constraints you were under, what trade-offs you had to accept, someone leans back and asks, "So, which part of this is you? What part came from your childhood? What part reflects your trauma? What part reveals your personality?" And something tightens in your chest, because you know what they're doing, even if you don't have the words yet. They're not trying to understand the work. They're trying to reduce it to a personality trait. And once you notice it, you see it everywhere. A company misses its targets, and the headline isn't "market shifted" or "costs exploded" or "regulation changed." It's "CEO failed." Same company, same CEO, 6 months later, market rebounds. Now, he's a visionary. Nothing essential changed. The story did. A sports team wins, and suddenly one player is a hero. Next season they lose, and that same player is overrated. Same training, same body, different outcome. History does this constantly. A war breaks out and we're handed one villain, one genius, one face to blame or praise, as if trade routes, alliances, economics, and timing didn't matter. It feels clean. It feels simple. It feels like understanding. It isn't. This is the trap, confusing outcomes with character. You see someone fail and think, that's who they are. You see someone succeed and think, that's what they're made of. And you miss the real drivers. The deadline that forced the shortcut, the bonus that rewarded the risky move, the audience that punished honesty, the environment that made one choice survivable and another suicidal. You mistake position for personality. You confuse pressure with preference. You treat results like confessions. That's the fundamental error, and it quietly costs you power. Because once you believe everything is about who someone is, you stop paying attention to what they're under. You stop asking why a decent person cut corners when incentives changed. You stop asking why a calm person snapped when boxed in. You stop asking what the system is rewarding. And here's where it turns inward. You start defending yourself when you shouldn't. You explain your intentions. "I didn't mean it that way. I was under a lot of stress. That's not who I am." When the problem isn't your character, it's your position. You argue morality in a game that's being decided by structure. You take misunderstanding personally when often it's just context distortion. You take praise as proof you're exceptional when sometimes you were just standing in favorable conditions. And if you're not careful, you start believing your own story. That's when people get sloppy. That's when leaders overestimate themselves. That's when creators start explaining instead of building. The smartest operators don't do this. They assume behavior follows incentives. They assume outcomes are conditional. They treat people, including themselves, as variables inside systems. They don't ask who deserves credit. They ask, what forces made this likely? They don't moralize success or failure. They study leverage. They know that if you change the environment, behavior changes. If you change what's rewarded, loyalty shifts. If you change visibility, competence looks different. That's why asking a writer if a novel is autobiographical misses the point. The novel isn't a diary. It's an engineered structure. Constraints, pacing, audience expectations, market realities. Reducing it to the author's psychology is gossip disguised as curiosity. And the same reduction happens to you. So here's the pivot. Quiet, controlled, irreversible. Stop over-explaining who you are. Stop correcting shallow narratives. Stop arguing with people who are committed to simple stories. Instead, watch conditions. Notice how people behave when bonuses are on the line. Notice who becomes principled when there's nothing to lose and who only is when it's safe. When something goes wrong, don't immediately blame character, yours or theirs. Ask what made that outcome the easiest option. When something goes right, don't get drunk on identity. Ask what aligned that time. This does two things. First, it makes you harder to manipulate. Guilt stops working when you see the machinery behind it. Second, it gives you a calm, unsettling authority, because you're no longer reacting to faces on the stage. You're watching the setup. And once you see the setup, you don't argue with performers. You change the conditions. And one final clarification, the kind that only comes after being wrong enough times. Wisdom isn't about reading people better. It's about needing personality explanations less. It's knowing that intention is cheap, virtue is often decorative, and consistency is rare under pressure. Wise people don't ask, "What kind of person would do this?" They ask, "What kind of situation makes this the rational move?" That single shift saves years of anger, years of misplaced trust, years of unnecessary self-blame. It humbles you, not morally, but mechanically. You realize how much of your patience comes from safety, how much of your ethics depend on not being cornered, how often good behavior is rented, not owned. That's not cynicism, that's accuracy. And once you see it, the noise drops. You stop arguing with appearances. You stop correcting stories that were never built to be true. You stop standing where outcomes get misread. You move where leverage actually lives. And from that point on, you're no longer reacting to life. You're positioning yourself inside it.
Thanks for spending time in this. If this sparked a new way of thinking, hit like and subscribe to keep the ideas flowing. And don't forget, check the description for the links to the resources and the original books we used today. We'll see you in the next one.